I was asked to speak about a time where I had to step out in faith. And I'm going to share with you one of the most transformational times where stepping out in faith directed my path until I was able to succeed. As a young boy, I was always the boy who knew all these interesting facts and always would sing melodies to himself. So that caused me and my peers to always bully me, tease me, and I would always feel like I did not belong. I always felt that there's something about me that no one wanted to know. But my parents, they always loved me, but my peers, the people that I wanted to accept me, they never accept me unless I helped them with their homework. And this time, I was like, when I stopped, the friendship stopped, so I went into this state of hurt, this state of just shielding myself out from the world. So when I was entering 8th grade, I talked to my youth pastor, and I was developing, I was healing, I was gaining my connection. But then my youth pastor hurt me. He broke my trust, and he tore my heart out that was already broken in pieces. So this time, I left the church, and through my high school years, I made a vow that it was better for me to be alone than to open myself up to people and to have relationships, to being hurt again. And so through that time, I was just, to myself, to my class, I was always felt like I did not belong. And then one day my pastor called me when I graduated from high school. He said, "Do you want Chick-fil-A?" I was like, "Of course." He's like, "Well, it's at this conference." I was like, "Oh, pastor." And so the Chick-fil-A ministry has been going strong for a while. So I came to this Iron Sharpens Iron conference, and because I wanted a Chick-fil-A sandwich. It was free. Who would not want a free Chick-fil-A sandwich? And so 8 hours into the conference, after call after call after call, and the Iron Sharpens Conference is a conference where all men gather for a time from all denominations under one banner. So I went there, and I already heard most of the stuff because I grew up in the church. I went to church school, church everything, Monday through Sunday. I was in the church. So I heard all of these stories and all of the verses, and so, but I was stubborn. I just did not move. And then the very last call, there's this guy, the pastor, the last pastor said, "There's someone in this room that needs to rededicate his life and find his healing." So 5 minutes, 10 minutes passed, 15 minutes passed, and imagine 800 men started getting like, "I gotta get home now. This guy better stand up." And so I was looking around, people beside me like, "Who is this guy? I got things to do." So I was like, "Man, I can't do it now. These people are in front of me. They're gonna find out who I am." And so then at the 20 minutes passed, the pastor said, "No one's leaving this room." I was like, "Man." And then I felt a nudge from God. And then I said, "I can't go up, God." I said, "I am broken. No one wants me." And God said, "I love you, my son." I said, "God, I am not the one who is deserving this healing, deserving to be rededicated." God said, "My son, I love you." So as I finally stood up, 800 men started clapping for me. And I felt this huge energy burst as I walked down. And the closer I got to the altar, all the pain and the anxiety and depression that I was holding, did not even know I was holding over the past 12 years in that time. And then I got to the altar. The man started praying for me. I began to weep. I began to weep so hard that their men stood up to hold me. All the pain and that I felt was being released. And it was that day that I felt that transformed my life. No longer did I have the faith of my parents, the faith of my pastor, the faith of who I wanted to please. I had the faith of my own. I figured out that I can follow God too. And it is through that experience that I'm here today, and that I discovered that to put my faith in God instead of putting so much faith in man, and that changed my perspective. And in closing, this is encouragement to all those who are helping those in the balance. Be of good faith. Your treasures are being stored in heaven. If you don't see it on this earth, God sees you, and he's proud of you. Thank you.
When I was asked to speak on the topic of faith today, according to the passages from Hebrews 11, I looked them up in the German version of the Luther Bible I learned to read from when I was a child. I found the English and German versions differed in meaning in the third verse. The English version reads, "By faith we understand that the worlds were prepared by the word of God, so that what is seen was made from things that are not visible." The German version reads, "Durch den Glauben merken wir, dass die Welt durch Gottes Wort fertig ist, dass alles, was man sieht, aus nichts geworden ist." This means that God created everything that is seen out of nothing. Creating that which is seen from that which is invisible suggests that the invisible first existed. I find the concept of creating from nothing more profound. I realized why I felt this way when I wrote my remarks for today. When I boarded a night train out of Cleveland, Ohio at 20 years old, I was taking a leap of faith that the life I was choosing would be better than the one I was leaving, and that I would be able to navigate my way in a whole new world. When I first stepped onto the front porch of the YWCA in Burlington, Vermont, with less than $400 in my pocket to start a whole new life, I was both exhilarated and terrified. I paid for my freedom with the loss of my Amish family and community and everything I knew. It took 2 tries for me to leave for good. Over the years, I sought therapy to heal from the trauma of having grown up in an abusive family. I needed those 600 miles between my original community and myself to discover who I was as an individual. I questioned what I'd been taught, that since I was born Amish, I needed to stay Amish. Otherwise, all hope of my salvation was lost. I inherited the image of God sitting on his throne, recording all our good deeds and all our bad deeds in his great book. Then, when we die, if the good outweighs the bad, we may enter the kingdom of heaven, and woe to those who are shown down that other road. There were also parts of the Amish faith I missed. When I used to sit in church and sing along with the slow German chants that had been passed down through the generations, I'd feel a part of a community of people who had known me since I was born. When we sang the Loblied as the second hymn of every service, I felt connected to Amish people in other communities singing the same hymn at the same time. I also felt connected to our ancestors back in Europe who left us the legacy of these hymns. Now that I was out in the world without this sense of community, I found myself in a disquieting search for my own faith. When I witnessed how David's mother lived her devout Catholic faith, I longed for one of my own. I not only worried about my own salvation, but it was difficult to live with this kind of uncertainty now, here on this earth. I often wished I could surrender to simply believe as my sisters did when they had their conversion experience. My conversion experience took years. But I kept feeling like my faith needed to be organic, to believe with all my heart, mind, and soul, and I couldn't use other people's words to proclaim my faith. I pondered fundamental questions. Who is God? Where do our souls reside before we were born, and where do they go when we die? If heaven is eternal, how is it that we are living outside of that eternity now? Talking about terrifying, leaving home and traveling to Vermont without knowing a soul was easy as pie in comparison to building my faith from nothing. No wonder I find the concept of creating something out of nothing so very profound. My sense of awe when I witnessed the beauty in nature, whether I was gazing upon a vivid sunset or rainbow, viewing the grandeur of a mountain vista, hearing the waves roaring in on the seaside, looking up into the branches of an ancient oak, or hearing birds singing in the trees, grew into a feeling that I was in the presence of God. I opened myself to these moments, and through my search for meaning, I developed my faith as an individual, but I still longed for community. Then I found this one. No, you haven't known me since I was born, but I feel an acceptance here for who I am in a way that I never did in the community of my childhood. When I feel your collective embrace, I am no longer forced to choose between my freedom and a sense of belonging and community. I have finally found a way to meld my faith as an individual with faith lived out in community. When voices are raised in song here, I know I am in the presence of God. When I witness the power of collective prayer that has brought about miracles in this community, I am in awe. I find myself grafting my chosen faith onto that old-time religion of my childhood. My faith is restored in God, in the example Christ left us, in goodness, in community, and in sanctity and salvation. I am ever so grateful.
I am wondering if we have any 6-year-olds here today. Any of you children 6 years old, would you put your hand up really high? No 6-year-olds. Ooh. Well, 7-year-olds probably. Any 7-year-olds? Oh, good. There's a 7-year-old. Okay. Well, that puts what I want to say in perspective. When I was 6 years old, my family moved from our home in Iowa to Kansas City, where my parents, A. Lloyd and Mary Schwarzenegger, served as superintendent and matron of the Mennonite Children's Home. They were volunteers. That's 9 years. And all the workers there were volunteers. It was there I learned what it meant to be a follower of Christ. I was part of a close-knit family of 65 children from broken homes, where the single parent was unable to care for the family, to support them. We met for chapel every morning, where we sang, listened to the Bible, shared stories, shared testimonies, and prayer requests. Our faith was simple but strong. We prayed when we had problems, having faith that God would help us through every day. I still remember the time when several of us girls were concerned about a lady who lived up the hill from us, and she was having problems finding a way to support her family. We met in a closet in a dispensary and had a prayer meeting on her behalf. My parents taught us to respect everyone and that we are all equal in the eyes of God. The faith I learned as a child has been a part of my life over the years. Now, decades later, I look back on my life, blessed by a loving husband who shared my values, and 4 wonderful children who are still very much a part of my life. I enjoyed many rewarding years of teaching children in many different locations, and my faith guided me daily as I taught 5th graders. Instead of being a strict disciplinarian, I treated my students with respect and found ways to make learning fun. I learned that understanding and compassion for the marginalized or ill-behaved child was much more effective than punishment. Respect was reciprocal. One unforgettable faith experience happened in the early 1980s after our children were grown, and Bob and I were teaching in Baltimore. Our youngest son, who was attending EMC, revealed to us that he is gay. This took me by surprise, took us by surprise, but we had no problem accepting the fact. I just felt sorrow that Doug had to go through so many years hiding his sexual orientation. My faith led me through the dark years that followed because Doug was wounded by discrimination from the church and the college. Fortunately, he received support from the Peace and Justice faculty and students from our other 3 children. Through that difficult experience, a new world of opportunity opened for me and brought many new friends into my life. I became a gay rights activist. After we moved back to Parkview from Baltimore in 1999, I began attending all the Mennonite Church USA conventions, BMC gatherings, Connecting Families retreats related to EMU Safe Space, wrote letters to the editor of church publications, attended PFLAG, and started a group of inclusive people here at Parkview called Arches. Though not official, this support group has meant so much to me, especially since my husband was unable to join me in these activities because he was dealing with Parkinson's and died in 2009. I have been hoping and praying that my church will become an officially welcoming church for LGBTQ people, like we have been welcoming immigrant families and other marginalized people. As a follower of Christ, it is very important to me to listen to those who disagree with me as they explain their view of what it means to follow Christ. I thank God for my wonderful gay son, for my family, for my friends in this church who have joined me in being inclusive, as well as those who disagree with me. I love this church, its music, its leaders, its sermons, its families, its outreach to the surrounding community. We are a family with a caring God who loves us all, including those who are marginalized. Thank you.